Hey everyone, sorry for the cutoff. Ethan, I believe I asked last question I asked was going from one church to another. Um, what for you makes it consistent with your faith? Like, what makes it stick to you? What do you think for you has been the constant that's kept you in your faith up until now? You're 14. You're growing up. A lot of things are changing in your life personally, physically, emotionally. You're about to go into high school, everything like that. So, when it comes down to your faith and your belief in God and everything like that, what do you feel for you personally is the one thing that stays constant with you that keeps you strong in your faith?
Well, I mean, it's kind of just the mindset that, like, eventually, I mean, like, if you, like, become a child of God and you stay consistent in the church, like, be in heaven someday, and that maybe, hopefully someday, that you won't go to hell, you know?
Okay.
And also, like, it's the fact that, God is always your friend. He's always there for you, you know? Like, if you have nobody else, it's always him that's always there for you.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on miracles? Do you believe in miracles?
Yeah, I do.
Mhm.
I think they can happen, you know?
Are there any miracles in your life that seem relevant to you?
I don't really think I have any miracles actually yet, but maybe someday I might.
Okay. Have there ever been anything from anyone close to you? Anyone, in your inner circle, anybody that you feel, hey, listen, that was a miracle?
Yeah, my grandfather, he had a heart attack, but it was a pretty bad one, and he successfully survived. So I believe that was a miracle. He could have died that day.
Okay. And do you think miracles are something that people should appreciate? Or do you think maybe, because me personally, I think, going to church and everything, I believe that miracles happen. I do. I think sometimes that we always get so caught up in our own personal lives. And I think sometimes we get so caught up in our own personal feelings, you know, especially during, I want to call them neutral times where it's not going really good, but then it's not going really bad. It's just kind of neutral.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes when we're riding the neutral plane, that we tend to miss some of the miracles that go on around us. You know, the Bible says that if you ask, you'll receive, and God sends miracles and God sends signs, to let us know that He's there, He's listening, and to let us know that He's real, He's always there. But I personally think that sometimes we always get so caught up in our own crap that we tend to miss it. What do you think is the best thing for somebody to really be able to notice signs and miracles? And what do you think somebody should do when they notice or when they're able to recognize these signs and miracles, wherever they happen, either to us personally or maybe to somebody else around us? Like, what do you think is the one thing that somebody should do if they see it? And what's the one thing that you think they should do in order to hold on to it?
Well, I think they should, be grateful that they are starting to notice these miracles around them and stuff, because it could like pertain to them, but like if it doesn't, it should still be like a blessing. They should like appreciate it, because miracles are miraculous and are a blessing to some people.
Okay.
And I think they should keep praying for some. Maybe if it also pertains to them, like they should be asking for miracles, praying for them, and like they should just, that also goes along with faith, I would think, because if you have faith in God, then you have faith in miracles, in my opinion.
Okay. Now, when it comes down to like mental health, I'm not sure if mom and dad ever told you. I mean, we kind of talk about it every now and then, but I didn't have the best upbringing when I was growing up. My mom was totally different, so I spent a lot of my time with her. So it was really rough for me growing up until the point that I moved with dad and I moved with you guys. But it was really, really tough. I think I moved with mom and dad when I was about your age, I think, before you guys were even born. So, for me personally, I know that I've always known that I had a rough childhood. I always known that I felt unwanted, felt unloved, I felt like I wasn't worth anything. I felt like, I just felt like I wasn't anything, in this world. I felt like I didn't have any reason to be here, like everything under the sun, you know what I mean? So the one thing that I've realized about myself recently is that a lot of that negativity that I grew up with, I brought with me into my adult life. And as I'm going through the motions, I didn't know how bad it was until recently, right? So sometimes what we go through affects who we are and how we move forward. What are your thoughts on childhood trauma? What are your thoughts on that negative mindset that maybe some people grow up with? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if maybe you've gone through something in your childhood that might have traumatized you, it could carry on to your adulthood because maybe, I don't know, maybe you still don't feel loved or you still don't feel wanted in the world. But I mean, you kind of just gotta maybe you can talk to somebody about it, or you can talk about to your family. Maybe you feel like your family doesn't love you, or your family doesn't you feel unwanted with you around your family. But maybe if you talk to somebody about it in your family, you can recognize that your family actually does love you and you are wanted in this world. And I think the questions before, faith and Christianity and stuff, I think that also can go along with this because God wants you and loves you, if you know what I mean by that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when it comes down to to getting over certain traumas and everything like that, like I said, some people don't really notice how bad it is until they're in it. You know what I mean? I know me personally, when I became an adult, and I was able to do things on my own. Up until that point, I always told myself that I was going to be better. I wasn't going to be the same. I wasn't going to make the same mistakes. I wasn't going to do the things that hurt me. I wasn't going to be that person that I hated growing up. Those same things that hurt me, the same things that I hated, the same things that made me feel less than. I always told myself that I wasn't going to do or be that. What do you think is the one thing that kind of stops us from realizing that we are those things? Even if we don't mean to be those things, what do you think is the one thing that can stop us from realizing that, yeah, you know what, we are making the same mistakes. We are becoming what we hated. What do you think would be the one thing that can block that realization that, yeah, this is what we're turning into?
I think it could be it'd be your ego, it could cover that up, because you're so self-absorbed in yourself, or maybe that you're not realizing that you're turning into that person that you don't want to become,
Okay.
And that's
Okay.
what I think of that.
All right. And what do you think is the best thing to do for someone who hits the point in their life where they realize, you know what, I have been making mistakes. I have been doing this. What do you think is the best thing for someone to do to get past that? Somebody who gets to the point where I realize, yes, now I realize I am making those same mistakes. I am becoming that. I am doing the same thing to somebody else that was done to me, stuff like that. What do you think is the best method, the best course of action, the best path to take for someone who can realize that, but who wants to move forward, who wants to get over that? What do you think is the best thing that somebody can do to move past certain things once they realize that, yes, this is what it is?
Well, I think that as soon as you start realizing that, you're becoming that person that you don't want to be, I think you should start, starting to change,
Mhm.
starting to try to make changes and, try your best to, I would say, not be that person, I guess. You know what I mean? Try and,
Mhm.
try not do the same things you do that might cause you to think that you're not
Okay.
being that person.
Okay. What do you, in the same regard, in the same instance as that, what do you think about forgiveness? Do you think forgiveness plays a part in that?
Yeah, I think forgiveness does play a part because, maybe maybe it's someone else that's causing you to do these things, or it's yourself. You always want to forgive them and yourself. Maybe if it's that.
Okay. So you're 14, right?
Yeah.
What is your definition of forgiveness to you at this age? What do you think is the definition in your mind of forgiveness? How can somebody forgive? What does forgiveness mean to you?
I think forgiveness is just it's more than an apology, I guess. you
Okay.
know? It's not the typical I'm sorry or something like that,
Okay.
or stuff like that. I think forgiveness is more than that. I think it's showing somebody that you're truly trying to show your sympathy for somebody.
Okay.
That, or maybe somebody hurt you or something in an emotional state, physical, all that, mentally, and maybe they did that to you and you're forgiving them for those things. I think forgiveness is more, I guess, I would say more, I'm not sure how to put this, kind of letting somebody into your life again, I guess.
Okay.
If it's a certain person like that,
Okay.
you know.
Do you think that forgiveness is a way to move forward? Do you think forgiveness is a way to allow people to rebuild on a broken relationship? Or do you feel like forgiveness is a way to accept what was and then just move past it? Whether it's with that person in your life, whether or not, or do you think that forgiveness is something that can be done to fix a broken relationship?
I think forgiveness is a good way to move forward in a broken relationship, like you said, because if it works both ways, that other person, that significant other, is forgiving you and you're forgiving them, you're both forgiving yourselves. I think that's a good way to move forward in that.
Okay. Do you think or feel that maybe forgiveness is sometimes misunderstood?
Yeah, I would say so, maybe sometimes.
Well, let me just make sure I clarify it a little bit. Now, my understanding of forgiveness is you accept somebody for who they are. You accept the mistakes that somebody made. You accept that what was done to you was done to you, but you also accept the fact that you can't change what happened. I've believed that forgiveness is being able to accept somebody for being human, because everybody makes mistakes. And forgiving somebody is acknowledging that you're human, you made a mistake, I understand you made a mistake. I don't think forgiveness is an excuse to allow things to continue, certain behaviors, but I also do believe that forgiveness can be misunderstood in the fact that we sometimes think, if I forgive you, that means that everything is done and over with. That, you know, it is what it is. We're going to pretend like it never happened. How often than not do you think how often than not do you feel that people can misunderstand forgiveness versus actually being able to truly forgive?
Well, sometimes I think forgiveness, like if you're forgiving somebody, you know, it's not truly forgiveness if they start, you know, making the same mistakes, you know, and like screwing up again and stuff like that. I think it's forgiveness when, you know, they start, you know, realizing that they might have done something wrong to you and stuff, something like that, and that they need to start changing and stuff like that.
So do you believe that people can change then? And you believe people can correct certain mistakes that were made? What do you think is the cause of that? What do you think is the cause for that change?
Well, I think the cause for a change is starting that realization that, you know, they still made that mistake, and the realization that the mistake was, you know, might have been bad, might have been a small mistake, it doesn't matter, you know. Like, if it was a big mistake and that they start to realize that it was, you know, then they can correct that in a way.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Now, do you think forgiveness is hard, or do you think forgiveness is easy?
Well, I think it depends, I guess, on the situation.
Okay. And what would you say? How would you say it depends? What would go into it?
Like, say, I don't know, just as an example, like, say you hurt somebody some way, and like it really took a toll on their life.
Mm-hmm.
That would be something I would say that's hard to forgive somebody. But rather than like you lie to them or something like that, I think that could be a little bit more easy to forgive somebody for.
Okay. So, when it comes down to forgiveness, whether it's easy or hard, what do you think is the best thing for somebody to do if they are going to forgive? What can somebody do to be able to make it easier to forgive? You know, for example, in that example that you gave, you know, somebody hurt another person and it really took a toll on their life, right? That person who's been affected, what can they do, or what can be done for that person to make it easier for them to be able to forgive?
I think it's like making sure that, you know, that other person can change, like having faith in that other person that might have caused that effect on you, making, like, try and believing that they can change their actions and maybe get them some help in a way, I guess.
Do you think faith plays a part in that?
I think it does.
Okay. Do you think that for the person who's trying to forgive and for the person who's being forgiven, do you think there's a disconnect between being forgiven and forgiving somebody else? For example, a person who knows that they made a mistake and is working hard to correct the mistakes that they made, and working hard to be different in order to prove that they can be different, right? Do you think that there's a disconnect between, or I should say, a selfishness to putting in the work to change and wanting to be forgiven? Do you think that there's a selfishness to that in some way, or do you think it's more of a self-realization that I know I messed up and I just wish that somebody can see that I am sorry? Or do you think it's, listen, I want things to be different, I'm trying, you gotta believe me type of deal? Like, what do you think? What do you think the disconnect would be with that?
I think it's like that realization, you know,
Okay.
that could, you know, make that person, like, if you're not realizing that you're doing something wrong, like, then it's not really going to be worth it, because like if you're not even realizing it, then like you can't really attempt to fix that problem.
Okay. So it's not so much of a selfishness thing, it's just a self-awareness thing. Okay. I guess, I mean, I always thought that, I always have this thought, and I had this thought yesterday, where when we go to forgive somebody, I know me personally, I've always gone through times in life where I'm able to forgive, but then I get hurt, where I'm not forgiven. You know what I mean? Like, I'm able to forgive, I'm able to give that, but sometimes it hurts when I'm not able to get it back. I think that that's kind of selfish in a way, but at the same time, I kind of think that it's more of that self-awareness type of deal too. So I think sometimes it's a little bit of both. I truly believe that if you're willing to forgive somebody, you're willing to look past the stuff that caused the hurt in the first place. I personally feel that if you're not willing to forgive, then you shouldn't pretend to. I think that there's a difference between, if I'm going to stay in your life, but I'm going to do to you what you did to me, I think that that's wrong. I think it's wrong for somebody to say, hey, I'm going to try and make a difference. I'm going to try and change. I'm going to try and do better. I'm doing everything that I can to learn about myself, to become more self-aware, to know what the root is of my actions and everything of the sort. To have somebody say, hey, listen, I'm proud of you for the changes that you've made, but I'm going to do to you what you did to me, right? I think that that's wrong. And I also believe that, everybody is entitled to their own feelings. Like, if I hurt you, you're entitled to be angry at me, right? Everybody's entitled to their own feelings, but at the same time, I don't think that two wrongs make a right. If you're going to allow me to continue to be in your life, I think to some extent you should be able to accept, and you should be able to put an effort into at least treating me like a human, treating me like a decent person, being a decent person, and not being able to repeat that cycle of hurt. What do you think is the hardest thing that people can do when it comes down to that? Getting hurt, staying in each other's lives, trying to make a change, repeating that cycle of hurt. Like, what do you think is the toughest challenge that people face when it comes down to that?
Well, it's like, if that other person, is doing that thing where it's like two wrongs don't make it right, I think that's like a really hard thing to get past when it comes to that, because like it's really hard to change somebody's mindset if they're already set to that, like if you hurt them in a way and they're just like, I don't really care, and like I'm not gonna forgive you or anything like that. Like, I think that's a hard thing to get past when it comes down to that.
Do you think that sort of behavior is a definite, hey, listen, there's no forgiveness possible, or do you think that's a block for forgiveness to come through?
I think that it could be just a block for that forgiveness too.
Okay. What do you think is the best course of action for somebody who's actually struggling with that block to forgiveness? What do you think somebody can do to really be able to get past that?
I think something to get past that is like, maybe there could be examples you can show them of like what they can do to try to fix it, and what they can show to realize that their mistake or whatever is wrong, and they're not in the right side in this situation.
Okay. Do you think distance helps, or do you think distance kind of drives people apart in a situation like that?
I think distance can help if you're a close family member or something.
Okay.
Maybe distance can help a little bit, but I also think it could drive people apart. Like, maybe if you're, I don't know, a distant friend maybe, and you got hurt by that distant friend, you take some time apart and maybe you're not friends much anymore.
Okay.
But like if it's like a really close family member, I think that forgiveness could come really quickly because you love them and like whatnot, and you care for them.
Okay. What do you think would be the difference between maybe a parent and a child relationship, or husband and wife type of deal? Do you think that there's a difference there than it would be with a friend, close friend, or maybe a close family member? Do you think that there's a difference? Do you think there's a different dynamic there?
I think it's the same thing because like your wife, I mean, you're probably with the significant other almost all the time, almost, and same thing with the child. You're seeing your kid every day. You're close to them, you love them, you care for them.
Okay. So ultimately, and we'll end it here with this. From your personal perspective, in your own words, everything that we kind of talked about now, why don't you go ahead and tell the people, what's the best thing to do to forgive? How does faith play a part in it? What are the do's and don'ts that people should do when it comes down to forgiving in faith? And how can somebody, get past, some bad times in their life, from your perspective? Why don't you go ahead and tell the people?
Well, if you're going through a really rough time in your life, I think all those play a core part in that problem you're having, your faith, forgiveness, things like that. Like, if you're really devoted to God, your Christianity, your Christian life and stuff like that, then I think that forgiveness part of that problem will come pretty easy to you if you're into God, and stuff like that. Because maybe that other person doesn't want to forgive you, but like, you still have God, you still have all that, you can have that miracle, like we talked about earlier, that could happen, and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Well, this is the first time that I've interviewed anybody, so I'm happy that my little brother was able to be a part of it, share his opinions on everything. It's good to get the opinion of somebody younger. I'm 31 years old, so I've been through some stuff in life. I've gone through a couple different things, so my perspective on certain things is where they are because of what I've been through. So it's nice to get, somebody from a younger age group to be able to give their opinions. Hopefully it can help somebody else understand things a certain way, or maybe help somebody understand things better. So, I hope you enjoyed the E. I appreciate you, talking to me. I appreciate you being open with me. And hopefully we can, do this more often. All right, everybody. Appreciate the time. Peace.